in fact, my tagline is, I take inspirational people and I make them aspirational, or something. I can't understand what it is, but it's something like that. You get the idea. So you're basically adding value, is what you're doing. You're saying,
Mm.
okay, I've got the ideas and the visual ideas to put you where you need to be. So that's in an initial conversation. People are telling me what they do, and they say, and I'm just looking for key points. Is the shoot going to be inside? Is it going to be outside? Is it going to be a mix of both? On location, and then clothing and the wardrobe I leave till a later date, till when I've got the contract. Then I can start talking about clothing. But in the initial conversation, I'm just planting ideas into the client's mind about how it could look, and how aspirational it's going to be. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually it's a really good thing. I'll remember that. This is why I like this show. I learn something every day,
Mm.
so that's a really
And
good.
you learn a lot from doing your own podcast, that's for sure. But
Absolutely.
yes, yeah, and so I guess, and maybe we can unpack this later in the show, but I'm all about ideas. That's my thing, really, and it comes partly from having studied photography so in depth, and also having lectured in it, because I said I was a senior lecturer in fashion and advertising photography. And at university, it's all about ideas. It's all about coming up with, it's not, people, I see a lot of criticisms of universities, photography degrees, people saying, oh, they never taught me how to run a business or how to even operate a camera or whatever. And I get it, but it's not about about that. The uniqueness of a university degree, photography degree, is that it should give you a grounding in good ideas. And good ideas are where the gold is. Certainly moving forward with the problems with AI or whatever it might be, having good ideas. Forget being, a technician or knowing loads of different things about cameras. Forget all that. That's not going to get you work. What's going to get you work is having good ideas. I guess you could reframe it as problem solving.
Yeah, because the thing about creativity, really, in that context, is that in a sense, anybody could learn how to operate a camera. It's not really difficult. Virtually, you know, 99.999% of human beings can learn how to drive a car. So driving a car is not that difficult.
No.
Being a racing driver or Formula One driver is a very
Yes.
particular skill set that
Yes.
takes a
Very good.
lot more in-depth
Yeah.
training and application and all the rest of it. It's a little bit like that because otherwise everybody would be doing their own branding photography. Why wouldn't they? You know, if it was just a matter of if it was just a matter of pressing a button like you do on an iPhone, for example, to get a halfway decent image, then everybody would be doing it. You
Well,
know,
and that can be part of building your brand up as well. There's nothing wrong with that, but certainly, you don't want it to be just be that. You want to have a mix, of smorgasbord of different things really to give a different feeling. But yes, ideas are crucial. Like, I know, I mean, I'm going to keep referring back to this, and I talk about it a lot on my podcast. I mean, the podcast I run, Shoot to the Top, is two people. It's myself and Sam Hollis. Sam is an expert marketer. He runs a website company for photographers, and he's brilliant at marketing. And he talks about marketing. I talk about the aesthetics of photography. So there's always a little battle between the two of us about, he's always trying to push the marketing side. I'm always trying to push, oh, you don't need to be marketing. Well, you should be doing more than marketing. You should be learning about photography and taking a good photograph and coming up with good ideas.
yeah, that's I think that's always the thing. Um, in a world where everybody has an iPhone or everybody has a smartphone, let's say everybody
Yes.
has a camera in their pocket. Um, I bet there are going to be a lot of people out there thinking, well, branding photography it sounds like a fun thing to do, but is it really still relevant? Is it still something that's needed, or is there still a market for it, or is that market declining because of the advent of smartphone cameras, AI, um, and all of that kind of stuff?
The personal brand, as I said earlier, is something that is fairly recent for everybody. In the olden days, only rock stars or film idols had a personal brand. But these days, with the internet, where everybody's has got a space on the internet, a voice on the internet, be it business or private, um, there's been a growth in the personal brand. Um, So in my view, I think there's space for that to keep on growing, and I think there's, more and more people are starting off as self-employed, or wanting to do their own thing and get out of and change. Got that certainly happened in COVID. Um, Branding, for companies is growing because it's becoming more a competitive marketplace out there. So companies are always looking for that edge. So my view is that it's a growing business, and I would really encourage people to explore if they're looking to look for photography careers to explore the personal branding space.
You mentioned your background is in fashion photography.
Uh-huh.
Um, so if I relate that back to, let's say, to branding photography, is branding photography something that is dependent on trends, like fashion is? I'm thinking, one year flared jeans are in, the next year it's
Mhm.
skinny jeans. Um, is that something that you need to be aware of as a photographer? Do you need to be sort of at the spear tip of changing
Mm.
trends, or how does that work in that field?
Oh, that's a great question, Kirsten. And my answer, the simple answer to it, yes, it is. It is fashion based. It is led by trends. As photography is generally, isn't it? I mean, let's think for photography. Okay, let's take that word that I can't stand actually, bokeh or bokeh. I mean, we used to call it out of focus. I don't know how it suddenly become bokeh, but there you go. Back in my day when I was studying photography in the early 90s, we were shooting on film, and I was really everything we shot was f8. Because the background, especially with a portrait, we call it an environmental portrait. The background was part of the visual story, was part of the narrative. It was all equally important. So everything had was in focus, as it were, equal weight. A modern trend in the last 10 years with digital cameras that can shoot wide open very easily and with very accurate auto focusing has made that people have the blurry backgrounds. Um, Now, I see that as a trend that's dying now because phones can do it, and all of a sudden it looks really boring, doesn't it? It doesn't look eye-catching anymore. So I think there's a trend going back to more, stronger depth of fields, etc. So that's the sort of trend that if that's where you're talking about trends in photography that I've noticed. In personal branding photography, I think there's been a trend for very very bright and overexposed images, again, with backgrounds that are quite blurry. I see that changing, with more lighting coming in, m more contrast coming in, um, and a bit more darker, dare I say, not darker mood, but like a little bit more vibe to it, but edgier. That's the word I was looking for, that but edgier.
It's
So
interesting
yeah,
that
there are trends.
It's interesting that you say that because I've noticed that in my headshot work, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I first started shooting headshots, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
It was all about the very bright Peter Hurley look.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
the, like, the really catchy eyes and the even
Yep.
lighting and, that kind of very present, very flat lit in a sense.
Very flat lighting.
Yeah,
He sold that look so well. He is
absolutely.
so brilliant. He defined the genre of headshot
Yeah,
photography without a doubt.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And and there's something to it. The thing is, as always, when it comes to trends, overexposure leads to people trying to find alternatives. That's
Yes.
usually the thing. And so, what I find now, and of course, when I first started doing headshots, I tried to emulate that trend. I tried to emulate it, but I didn't try to copy it. I think what I always try to do was I tried to emulate it, but I tried to kind of just find my own way of doing it and
Uh-huh.
inject a little bit of personality into it. Um, but what I find now is virtually almost in every session, um, my clients like to really go for the darker looks, the edgier looks, the
The
moodier
dark
looks,
side. The
you know,
dark side.
the dark side. Yes, exactly. I've pulled them over to the dark side. And I really prefer shooting that too. You know, I've
Yeah,
I've
definitely.
really moved away from white backgrounds. I actually personally, I know
Mm,
sometimes you have to do it, but
mm,
I personally really dislike white backgrounds nowadays.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, they're not great for skin tones, aren't they?
No, they're
Uh,
horrible.
yeah, that's why they make people, and especially if you overlight a background. I mean, back in the day, again, like when I started shooting in the mid-90s on my Hasselblad, shooting a white background was a real art. There were people who could do it really well. And there's different types of white backgrounds. There's like a super white, there's a warm white, and, so there's a real skill to it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.